Quigley in 5, underwater in the yellow lane.
Jazz Carling of Great Britain.
Quigley goes through. The silver to Jazz Carling. Wonderful silver medal for Great Britain.
Welcome to the Honest Athletes podcast with
Lauren Quigley
and Jazz Carling. Welcome to episode 3 of the Honest Athletes podcast. After last week, we discussed life after sport, and today's topic is competition diaries. So talking about all things racing and competitions that we've been through. It's actually quite funny, Lauren, because when I have spoken to some people, some friends and family, and I've said actually doing the podcast has felt a bit like therapy. Yeah. I feel like because I'm actually opening up and being able to be really honest and just talk about certain things that I guess I'm not really opened up too much about before, but I think that's what's great about the podcast is that we can actually open up and talk about things that we've never actually spoke about before.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I had a conversation yesterday with someone who was really important in my career and helped me through a lot, and I said exactly the same, like being able to talk about all this stuff even if no one listens to the podcast. I feel like it's like unpaid therapy for me, so thanks for being my unpaid therapist, Jazz. And yeah, like you said, the last episode was all about life after sport and the transition, so you know it was a bit of a longer, heavier episode, but I think today should be quite funny actually. And even just a brief conversation before we started about some of the, well, you saying that you've got some funny memories in racing particularly. So I'm obviously interested to hear that. And I've got a couple here myself. So let's get cracking. But I think, Jazz, what were you like on race day, first of all? What were you really nervous, or were you having a laugh? What were you like?
Yeah, I was quite a nervous swimmer, I think, before races, but for me, I used to think the nerves were like excitement, and I used to try and use them to my advantage. I always used to tell my coach, I'm so nervous today. But I think that was me just feeling like I was ready to race, and I quite enjoy that nervous feeling. And it makes me feel like I'm ready to race. And if I wasn't nervous for a competition, I guess I'd probably be thinking, what's wrong with me? Why am I not nervous?
Yeah. What kind of nerves did you experience? Was it like butterflies, or did you experience, I don't know, sweaty palms, all that kind of thing? What did you go through when you had nerves?
Yeah, for me, it was probably in my belly. I used to feel like it was like a washing machine. Sometimes hands a bit shaky, those kinds of things. And just really a bit panicky, a bit like, oh God, like what if this goes wrong, and all those kinds of things. So yeah, I think that was probably how I got nervous. I mean, I know a lot of people were different. What about you? How were you on race day?
It depended on the situation I was in. If it was like a trials or a major competition, something like that, I was nervous. Definitely, nerves was something that I know everyone deals with, but particularly at certain parts of my career, it was a bit of an issue for me, and trying to control those nerves. If I was at a competition that was a bit less important and I could relax a little bit more, I love to have a joke, really. I like to be the joker. I think even at the big ones in the chorium, I was the joker as well, but I was definitely underneath, very, very nervous. And for me, yeah, it was just, I think similar to you, the stomach, butterflies and everything like that. But like you said, they're great to have nerves. And if you didn't have them, then you're doing something wrong, I think. So, yeah.
Do you miss that feeling at all?
I think the longer everything goes on, I think I do, because you forget not the bad times, but, the really nervous times, and when it starts to go not in a positive way, in a negative way. And so when you start to forget that, obviously with time, you're like, oh, I really miss it. I'd love to experience it again. I think at the minute I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm quite happy to be chilled and stuff like that. What about you? Because I know a lot of swimmers do, or athletes do, miss that feeling.
I do miss that feeling, but it's weird because I actually still do get nervous for certain things. Maybe not to the same extent, but I still get nervous. When I did my first ever triathlon in Lanzarote, when you were there, I was so nervous for that. I think I'm probably get more nervous when I feel like I'm not as prepared for something, or I'm not ready, but all the same, they still feel horrible
Yeah,
at times.
yeah, they do.
But yeah, even I ran a 10-kilometer race for the Stroke Association, and then I was so nervous before. I'm like, what is going on? I still get nervous for things, even though it's just a little random run around the park. I still get those nerves.
You think part of that is because of your name, Jazz Carlin, the Olympian, the Olympic silver medalist? Like, do you think that carries a bit of, oh, I'm a bit nervous here, because people sort of expect, even though it's not my sport, like the Lanzarote triathlon, even though you're not a triathlete and it was your first one, did you feel like that just because, you know, you are who you are and it carries a little bit of weight with it?
I don't know, really.
Oh no,
think,
have I just brought something up that doesn't exist?
I
And
think
now it does.
no, whenever I do go to competitions, I think people are always like, oh, like expect me to go in and smash the swim or whatever. And like, I'm not as anywhere near as fit as I was. And so like, yeah, like my swim will always be fairly strong, but it's nowhere near as fast as what I used to be. So obviously, even when I did the triathlon, and it's yeah, Lucy Charles was there, and like she smashed me on the, like obviously I wasn't I wasn't at all ready to perform. I'd been retired for quite a long time and I hadn't swam for months and months. So when you're up against people that do train all the time, yeah, I cannot compare.
Yeah, no, I get it, obviously. And it's funny because in your own mind, sometimes you are like, oh, people will probably expect me to perform really well here. And I haven't swam for how long, or haven't done anything for how long. And so realistically, like you've just said, you weren't prepared. You hadn't, you know, you'd taken a break from everything. And it's just funny, like your mind plays tricks on you in that way, doesn't it? And it puts that expectation when, if you stand back and again perspective and look at it, you go, I haven't done anything. How can I possibly, you know, expect that? And people know that. People understand that as well. What's the most nervous you've ever been?
Oh, I don't know.
Do you have a race that you were like, oh, I'm really nervous here. This means a lot.
There's not one that kind of sticks out. I think at the Olympics I was nervous, but I wouldn't say it's the most nervous I've ever been.
No.
Weirdly, I think I was probably the most confident I've been on the blocks because I knew that I'd done absolutely everything and I could just try and enjoy it. So I don't think that was actually the most nervous I've ever been. And I think back to like my first GB senior team, and that was at the World Championships in 2009 in Rome. And I was 18, and I think that was probably a very nervous time for me. The night before, I'd qualified for the relay, and basically we were told for the 4x200 meter freestyle relay, and I was on a team with Rebecca Adlington, Joe Jackson and Caitlin McClatchy. And basically in the lead up, all on the holding camp, which is where you go to train before the competition, just normally somewhere quite local to where the competition is. So it's not too far to travel. And I guess get used to the time zones. And even though Italy, it was a bit different, but get used to the time zone, the climates. We were outside training because that World Championships was outside. And yeah, it was heading into it. We were all told we're going to swim you all of you in the heats and the same team in the final. So I'd qualified in 4th place. So it was my first GB team, the first team I'd qualified for. And obviously I was on a relay team with all these established athletes. And that was probably a very nervous time for me heading in the lead up. But we were told we'd just swim in the same team heats and finals. And then the evening before that we were due to have the relay, the head coach came over and sat us all down on one meetings and said, yeah, we're bringing in someone else and we want you to swim off for the place. So I had to swim off in the heats. There was 3 of us that had to swim off to try and get 2 places in the final. So they were saving 2 swimmers. And like, oh my God, like my first team, and I had to try and swim and perform like at my best in the morning and just to try and get into the final. And I guess I was on like quite an established team. It was a really good team of people that were there. And I was that first team, no experience on that at that level at all. And it just threw me off completely. And God, I was panicking and I was so nervous and quite upset actually, because I guess I'd set myself up that this would be the same team and hopefully we'd qualify for the final and I'd be racing in the final too. So it did throw me off, but I think it also took me to another level. I managed to drop 2 seconds in my heat and have the swim of my life. So
what time did you go?
So I went 1:56.
Wow.
I don't know the exact point. I qualified in a 1:58, 1 minute to 58 seconds. And in the heats, I managed to drop 2 seconds to go 1:56. But I was swimming for my life. It was like I was swimming to qualify for that team and managed to get on to into the final four. And that's when we came away with the bronze medal. So it was like my first GB senior team, but there was a lot of like pressures around it and the nerves. I was just so nervous because I felt like I was kind of like the weakest leg of the relay, and I just didn't want to let the girls down. So it was like a mixture of everything, and I've not been able to perform at that level before. So it was like that first time. So I think that was probably one of my most nervous I've been. What about you?
Most nervous. I know I've just asked this question to you, and I'm just trying to think. I was just trying to think quickly then. I think I always found the trials worse than the actual major games. I think a lot of people do. And so I think it will have to be a trials, and it'll have to be, again, there's not really one swim that sticks out, but I think it's got to be maybe Commonwealth Games trials, just because I'd made the senior team the year before the World Champs in Barcelona. And so I think that expectation was there, and I knew I'd trained really hard, and, it was like, you should be able to do this now. So it's like that expectation of everyone sort of thinks, oh, well, people have already put you in a tracksuit before you've even raced. And it's like, no, I've got to qualify, And so you have that expectation. Again, there's not really one race, I don't think. I remember being really nervous for relays, like you've just mentioned. Like relays were, because it's for the, a lot of swimmers go 2 different ways. They get really nervous for their own races, obviously, or relays get them. And I think relays for me got me quite a few times because, it's for the team. And I think the one of the times that I was most nervous, and it's going to sound crazy, but it was the 100 hundreds that we did for Swim for Leukemia, just because, everyone wanted to swim really well for the cause of what we were swimming for. And also I remember being told at the start, if someone goes early, then you get disqualified and that's it. So I think it was like the 100 of the most safest takeovers you've ever seen in your life. I was like, waiting for the person to come in before me, like, have you touched the wall? And so, like, just things like that as well, make me nervous, like things that are for the team and for someone else, really. But yeah, nerves are a hard thing to get over sometimes. And if you, like I said, if you go too nervous, then it's not a great thing. But I always found after I'd done a warm up, some of the nerves had gone. After I'd got in and swam a bit and I'd sort of got rid of a little bit of those nerves because I'd gone back in control of what I was doing and stuff like that. So yeah, interesting.
I think another one for me was at the Olympic trials in 2016. That was probably another time. Well, I look back and that was one of the most stressful weeks of my life. Going back to actually try and qualify for Rio after missing out on 2012 and all the stress that had gone through then. I think that was a really tough week, and missing out on not qualifying in my first 2 events, and it was all down to my final swim. And 400 meter freestyle, it was just me and 8 lengths of the pool to try and get my place on the team. And it was funny because as you said in the warm-up, that used to relax you. Well, in the warm-up, I mean, I was feeling okay. I wasn't feeling great. But when I speak to my old coach, David McNulty, now, he actually said that in the warm-up, obviously your coach will give you a pace. So he'll tell you for 50 meters if you're hitting your 400-meter pace. So for me, it was normally about 30.4 to 30.6. And he told me, I think I was 30.8 or something, 30.6. And he tells me now that I was actually going 32.8 in the warm-up.
Gosh. Oh, God.
And he said, he was looking at me and he was like, oh no, this is a write-off. Like the week's just been awful.
Yeah.
And it was only when got into the race and managed to get into it and managed to actually get the qualifying time to be automatically selected for Rio. But apparently in the warm-up, I was looking terrible. And I was really nervous for that as well. That's another one.
I can understand why, for sure. And that's quick thinking for coaches, you know, to make the right decision. Obviously, Dave made the right decision there, because if you'd have known, that wouldn't have been good.
He claims he never does it. He claims that it was a one-off and never happened.
Yeah.
But he must have. And it is actually a really interesting thought process, isn't it? That if you make your swimmers feel good in the warm-up and build them up, even though it might not be quite on it, then you've got to lift their spirits and make them feel good, make them feel ready to race. And it's true. It's an interesting one, actually.
It is. But one of the best piece of advice I got in terms of the warm-ups was from James Goddard. When I trained with him, it was only for a short time at Stockport, but it was brilliant. And we had some great fun and did some great sessions together as we were both backstroke. But we were at a competition and I felt awful in the warm-up. I think it was at Leeds, and I just got out and I was like, oh, Jimmy, that was terrible. You know, I was way off my times. And Jimmy said, look, I've raced before where I've felt awful in the warm-up and swam amazing. I've also raced when I felt great in the warm-up and swam terrible. And so he said, the warm-up, you've just got the aim of it is to warm up. And you've got to enter the race, clear mind, you know, just give it your all, because you just don't know. You know, you can't go off the warm-up a lot of the time. So it is interesting, really. You know, if you'd have known you were going 32s, the mental side of racing is so huge that who knows, you know, it could have really changed how, the result of the race, really.
I was a bit superstitious, I guess you can call it, in one way, where my warm-up for years was the same warm-up.
Wait, didn't you used to do like 50k in the warm-up?
So yeah, I used to do around 2,600 meters to 3,000 meters in the warm-up. And it was actually, a lot of practice. But for me, I used to feel like my most warmed up when I'd done a longer warm-up. And I would do exactly the same warm-up. And
what was that warm-up?
My coach at the time, Bob McAllister, would say, you need a long warm-up, because even in training, it would take me a while to get going in a main set. So he was like, well, you need to do more warm-up. And so, used to do up to 3 kilometers, 2.5 to 3 kilometers in the warm-up. And I used to actually get out about 30 minutes before my race. And that was just because, again, that worked really well for me, and to try and stay warm and to make sure that I could hold on to all the warm-up gains that I'd made instead of losing it all. I guess when you're younger and at some of the competitions, local competitions, and you'd warm up and then you wouldn't race for 3 hours. And it's like, well, there's actually not that much point in warming up if you are not swimming for another 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
So I used to get out about 30 minutes before and quickly get on my suit and then get ready for the cool room, which is where we all head before we race. So I used to do quite a long warm-up, but I always remember Liam Tancock actually saying,
I was just going to say Liam Tancock, but carry on, because this might be 2 different stories.
Well, Liam used to say to me, I don't know how much I actually do in the warm-up. I don't know. I don't count. He said, I just go until I feel good and until I feel ready to race. And I could never have done that. In my head, I had to stick to the same warm-up. And it just shows how many different types of personalities and athletes there are in sport. That for Liam, he could just get in and swim till he felt good and swim till he felt pretty good, ready to race. Whereas I had to stick to quite a structure and a routine to get me ready to race. So it's very different, actually.
Yeah, and speaking of Liam, I used to, obviously we were both backstroke, and at those events, typically they were abroad, but when you'd have the all the events together, male and female. So if it's the 50 back, they do men's and women's and men's and women's. And so we were racing roughly about the same time, and I'd have warmed up, suited up, ready to go, like hat and goggles, like just waiting to walk around. And Liam still was sat on the side, not even warmed up yet. And I used to just watch him and be like, he is so chilled. Like, I'd love to get to that one day, you know, like he was just like, yeah, I'll be fine. And he always was as well. Like he obviously had his routine nailed down, which seemed to be just whenever you fancy it getting in, and like you've just said, I'll just do as much as I think I need to. And I think that's quite an interesting contrast between you doing 2.5 to 3K to someone just going, I do as much as I feel good.
But it is for people like Liam that's how they deal with it, and going in and swimming till they feel good. If he did what I did, or if he did the structure and the warm up and the set routine that I did, it wouldn't work for him. So for him, it's like, again, I think for athletes out there, it's about finding what works best for you and what you feel confident, what makes you feel good and ready to race. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
But one of the actual funny stories I have.
Yeah. I was just going to say, let's get into the funny stories because we've not cracked it yet. So go for it.
One of the things, I don't know whether you know, but it's very known for me, is I am actually a big sleep talker and sleep walker.
I have heard this.
So I'm normally heading into a competition, especially when I used to go away with GB and stuff. I used to be very nervous at especially on the early days when I was younger and it was like my first team. I used to be nervous, like who I was going to share with. And I would say to them, look, I'm really sorry. I do sleep talk and that kind of thing, because I had to warn them and I didn't want to be like so embarrassed turning up to my first kind of GB teams and I'm talking in my sleep all the time.
Yeah.
Especially when you don't know what you're actually about to say in your sleep. And there was one competition actually where I was at the European short course and I was sharing a room with Amy Wilmot. And again, I think it was one of my early days. It was one of my first kind of European short course. I mean, I wasn't a massive fan of short course at the time. And I remember, so I woke up, put everything in my bag, got ready, got myself all sorted, ready to go down for the heats in the morning session. And Georgia Davis had said, look, knock on my door, because we were similar kind of times. We'll go down, warm up together. And basically knocked on Georgia's door and she wasn't answering. I was like, this is strange. I looked down at my phone and it was 1:30 in the morning. So basically, I'd imagined that my alarm had gone off and that it was, I just, thought my alarm had gone off. I got up, hadn't even checked the time, got ready, left my room, and then got ready I was knocking on Georgia's door. Luckily, she didn't actually wake up. But looked down at my phone and it was 1:30 in the morning. And so
did Amy not wake up? Did Amy not go, what are you doing, Jazz?
No, because I think one thing, when you share with people, you get used to someone leaving at a certain time and later. You kind of just adapt and you try and just get your sleep, sometimes earplugs. But that was one thing. I used to talk in my sleep all the time, sometimes sleepwalk. I've actually locked myself out of a hotel room before. That was at a nationals when I was younger. I locked myself out of a hotel room. And so, it's quite known. I did it a lot more when I was younger. I don't feel like I do it as much now.
Yeah.
But it's normally when I'm in a new place or like a hotel, it's like somewhere that's not my bed. I sound crazy right now.
No, you don't, because I was literally just going to interject and say, Jazz, I do the same. I sleep talk. I don't sleepwalk. I think I used to when I was little, but I sleep talk. And it's funny you just mentioned you roomed with Amy Wilmot, because Wilmot was my roommate for the majority of my time on the GB team. And so you obviously got her ready for me, because then I obviously sleep talked every time I was rooming with her, and she just got used to it in the end. I think once, though, I did sit up in the middle of the night. And I don't know if I said something, but I was just looking around. And the next morning, Amy was like, I was terrified last night because you just sat bolt upright, just looked around, didn't say anything. And apparently she was like, are you all right, Lauren? And I was just obviously in my own world. But
sometimes I actually shout in my sleep and I'm like, in real life or in awake life, I don't shout. So why do I want to shout in my sleep?
That's why, because you don't do it in real life.
I'm letting it all out.
Have you ever had one of those apps where it downloads, it records you in your sleep, and then you can listen to it the next day? Because I did a few years ago, and I listened to it back, and I was singing Katy Perry's Dark Horse song, but I didn't know the words. And I was like full on singing this song in the recording, and it was the most hilarious but also terrifying things I've heard, because I was just like, where's that come from? But have you ever heard anything on one of those apps?
Also, one time I have been able to, it was my ex-partner, and he said, God, you're just sleep talking all the time, and like you're shouting and all this kind of stuff. He said, I'm going to record you. So he downloaded the app, got the app, and then every time that he pressed record, I wouldn't like say a whisper in the night. Really? And it was like that. I don't know whether it was like my mind knew it was
subconscious. It was like, don't say anything.
Like,
keep it in, Jazz, keep it in.
So the only times it's actually ever been recorded, and
I wonder why that is. We'll have to get a sleep expert on and just like find out what's going on with us. But a funny story in terms of racing for me. I've got one here. It was at the World Champs in Kazan. It was the 50 back. Everyone in the core room just seemed to be in a great mood. And so I had, it was Missy Franklin, Emily Seaborn, Maddie Wilson was in there, Mia Nielsen, and it was just the music was blasting in the stadium, and we were just having a great old time, like a nice little party. And if anyone, obviously normally the core room is serious, I must say, like we were taking it seriously, but we were also having a good time at the same time. And with it being the 50, it was, a bit more chilled. And because we were having a good time and dancing away and stuff like that, and we were under the stands, we didn't actually hear them announce us walk out. So we were actually late to walk out for our lanes. So they'd obviously said, I don't know what lane I was in, but whatever lane, Lauren Quigley from Great Britain, no one walked out because I was still in the core room dancing away. And it was on TV. And I just remember literally legging it out after that, after we'd realised, like, I think there's about 4 of us that had missed our cue, and legged it out on TV. And then, when you go to the wrong lane and it's just all awkward, and it was funny though. And I suppose it got the adrenaline going for the race. And because it was a 50, it was all good. But that was a moment that I look back on, and I do laugh to myself, because I just think, anywhere, anytime in the world, why would you do it on TV at the World Championships? But then there you go. That's just me, I suppose.
One thing that's so great is about the competitions is you do make some amazing friends, and I guess you do get to know a lot of the people that you're racing against, and some of them, I still keep in touch with quite a lot of them. And it's nice, like the friendships and things that you can make along the way. And I guess racing along the circuit, you get to, I think as British guys, you get to know a lot of the European swimmers. So because you're doing a lot of competitions around Europe, so you get to know a lot of them very well. One funny story, actually, I was in Mare Nostrum in Monaco, and I put my shampoo in, mid-shampoo, washing my hair.
And
an athlete was in the shower. Another athlete.
Yeah.
I don't know the name. But anyway, I'm mid-shampoo.
No,
I don't. Mid-shampoo. And just next to me. And then all of a sudden, she just squatted down and started going for a wee right in front of me.
Wow. Okay. You do you. Sure.
So, like, I think as Brits, we are so like conservative sometimes, and like
towel around you.
And we're just like, but anyway, I couldn't escape. I was mid-shampoo. Otherwise I'd have to leave with all the bloody soap suds in my hair. So yeah, I just had to
what did you do? Did you make eye contact with her? Did you?
Hell no, I had to just try and look away and just get this shampoo out of my hair.
Eye contact morning. Did you condition, or you're like, this is too far, I need to get out of it?
I think I just carried on just like nothing had happened. I didn't really know what to do.
You should have joined in. Made it less awkward.
Oh God.
Yeah, you go through those times. I remember going to European Juniors, and we were all in the showers, and they were communal showers. We were all in the showers after one of the sessions. What I think probably heats on the first day, and so we're all, like you say, the British are, well, all of us, round towels round us, and nothing on show, and there was a team in particular that I'm not going to name, but they all came into the showers stripped off, communal showers as well. I'll just say again, stripped off and just started shaving the bits in front of us. And honestly, I didn't know where to look. Do you eye contact? Do you talk to them? Do you mid-shampoo leg it? I didn't know what to do. And it was such an eye-opener, especially being a European junior team. You're not really exposed to that so much, obviously, from as much as you are on the senior team. And it was just like oh wow, okay, this is happening. What do we do in this situation? But again, just things you look back on and laugh, really, and just think it's funny as the British team, we are all wrapped up all the time and towels around us. And getting changed on poolside, though, that's a skill that you learn in swimming, isn't it?
Yeah, in some places it's frowned upon, but I think you just kind of get used to it, don't you?
Yeah, you have to adaptability.
Yeah.
Jazz, question. Drugs test. Do you remember your first ever drugs test? Was it our competition?
God, I actually forgot about all the drugs tests. I forgot about all those. And for everyone that doesn't know, so if once you get to a certain level in swimming, they put you on whereabouts. So you basically have to give where you are going to be for an hour every single day of the year. So you have to be like, I will be at home between 7 and 8 p.m. or I will be at the swimming pool at this time or whatever. So that's where you actually have to be in that hour. So they can turn up at any time in that hour. They can also turn up during the day where you say you might be at training or whatever. But if it's not your designated hour of the day, you don't have to be there. So they could just be a random drugs test or they could come at your hour. And so
if they do come at your hour and you're not there, you do get a strike and 3 strikes and you get a ban, I think. Is that how it works?
For 3 strikes, yeah.
3 strikes, yeah. Anyway, continue, please, Jazz. Sorry.
Yeah, so I actually don't remember my first drugs test. So you basically have to take your bottoms down. You have to kind of lift your top up a little bit, and they have to actually see you going for a wee.
You have to wee in a cup, yeah.
And
jar,
in a cup, yes.
Yeah.
And then I was on the blood passport as well, so they had to take my blood as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, first drug test I don't actually remember. I think the worst one was at the Commonwealth Games in India, actually, and I had to do I basically was naked and had to do a 360 spin.
Oh gosh,
making sure they checked there was nothing.
Lovely.
They could see everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
you do get used to them, don't you? You get used to them, but it is invasive.
Get used to someone watching you going for a wee, basically.
Yeah, and it is an invasive process, but you do it to basically go, I'm cool, go for it, and to hopefully catch the ones that are doing the wrong thing, really. And so it's just a process you have to go through as you get into that top bracket in your sport.
I think early doors, it's like it can feel quite intrusive and like, oh my God, I can't wee. And some people take hours and hours and you have to wait until you can go.
Yes.
And also if your sample is too hydrated, so you've drank too much water, they can't actually take that sample. So you've then got to wait even longer. So some people will be there hours and hours waiting to get a sample to then leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is probably one of the toughest things is having to actually go in front of someone. But if it's too hydrated, you've got to wait again. And seeing people just waiting for hours and hours.
The worst is when they turn up at your house at night and you're about to go to bed and the door goes and you just think,
and you've just been. That's the worst.
Just been for a pre bedtime we all know it, and then they knock on the door and you have to obviously open the door, and you can be sat there watching TV with them for hours, like Joshua said, hours till you need another wee. It's, it's a process. It's not the best process ever, but it is what it is. And I always used to, when I was actually doing the wee and they were watching me, I'd be having a chat with them in the end, and I'd just be like, so did you watch last night, or have you seen this? Or just because, I suppose they get bored at times, just sitting around waiting for someone to wee. It's a weird thing, isn't it?
I do actually feel quite bad because in the lead up to Rio, especially, I was probably being drugs tested 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And that's someone either comes to your house or to the pool or whatever. So I was getting tested a lot. And again, when you say when they come at night time, they could come at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And that was a lot of the time. And as an athlete and as a swimmer, like, I was so tired, and you have to be up the next morning at 6 a.m. or whatever to go training. And like, I would be quite grumpy, and I know they are just doing their job, but like, I think I've fallen asleep before, like on the sofa, and like, if you can't go, you can't go. And it's like them just waiting. And that is really, really tough, is when like they come nighttime. I think one funny story for me, obviously, when the Olympics, after winning my first silver medal in Rio, and obviously everyone that's a medalist has to get a drugs test. So the finals actually were like 10 p.m. at night till 1 a.m. in the morning because of the TV rights and all that kind of thing. And so by the time I'd actually got back to the athletes' village and things like that, it was about 3 a.m., 2:30, 3 a.m. after all the drugs test, media and things like that. And like, I'd won my first silver medal, right? Like, dream come true, won my first medal. And obviously get back and I get to the dining hall, and like, I'm sat just eating like chicken and pasta, like on my own, thinking like, yeah, like, I've just like achieved my first medal, and there was like no one to celebrate with. It was the same after the second one. It was the same after the second one. And like, I'd finished my Olympics and everyone was like out, there was no one there. So I was after my second medal, when I'd finished competing, and I sat in the dining hall and I was just eating pizza and ice cream, sat on my own thinking, what is life? But I do the drugs test after the medals, and like, it can be random as well. You can randomly have drugs. So and all for like having the clean sport, and like, I was happy to do it. And it's quite good because it means that you can actually pee on demand most of the times now, which is
well,
great.
I'm to be fair, I'm not the worst. I'm sure they have people that just never can wee. I normally need a wee all the time, so I'm, it's never been too long for me. But I do remember my first senior team, and it was Barcelona World Champs 2013. And it was the 50 back final. I'd made the final, which was great, but I came 8th in the final, so technically last in the final. And when you get out of the pool, you can see if they've got your accreditation with someone with a clipboard, and you know that, oh, here we go. And because I'd come 8th, I was like, I hadn't done the best time, and I was a bit frustrated. And I remember just looking at them with my accreditation and just thinking, I came last. Like, clearly, if I'm on them, they're not working. So can you do someone else? But it was fine. It wasn't a annoying process. I think I went straight away, so it's all good. But yeah, it's just another thing that athletes have to be mindful of, and whereabouts and everything. Where's the best pool you've ever raced at for the call room? Because I have one pool that I went to that was unbelievable, the call room. I could have sat in there all day. And so I was wondering if I'll go on to that in a minute, but I was wondering if you ever had an unreal call room experience, or were they all just in a room or on poolside? Or
I don't really remember the call rooms that well. I don't know. I can't really remember them that well. For me, it was always about just, I know you used to have a joke and laugh around. I'd have the odd chat with people around, but most of the time it was kind of like focusing on the race and thinking about my race plan and all those kinds of other things. So I don't really remember the call rooms that well.
Did you ever race in Marseille?
Yes.
So that's where I'm talking about, because you were behind the blocks, which had a screen behind the blocks, so you couldn't see the call room. And it was looking out to sea. And you could go in for a dip after your race. Do you remember? That call room was I could have just sat in there, like, go off and race. This view is unbelievable.
I was thinking you meant like a chorium that was like, I don't know, there was a lot going on.
Oh,
Or that
no,
kind of
hey, any chorium that I was in, I was trying to make sure there was a lot going on. We never
Marseille
were.
is amazing though.
Marseille is unbelievable. We were never in the chorium together, were we?
No 200 freeze?
I think I did one, maybe. when you would have just gone, oh, look at this idiot in the lane one over there. I'll see you at the end, love. In terms of racing, you mentioned superstitions before. I don't think in the respect of that you had any, but did you have any suspicions before your race, like you had to wear a certain cap this way, or you had to do this kind of stretch, or anything like that, or were you just like out, ready to go?
It was mainly just the warm up and the routine of it all. I would always stick to the same routine and same warm up. And I guess like if I hadn't done the warm up and things, I think, yeah, that would have thrown me off a little bit. But I tried not to stick to like having certain things certain ways because I didn't want it to like play on my mind even more.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, even when you look back and in Rio at the Olympics, one of the buses which had 4 of the 50-meter freestyle semi-finalists on, I think it was 4, including Fran Halsall, one of GB's, and yeah, it went to the wrong facility or wrong location. I think it went completely in the wrong direction, and so all of these girls, which had obviously had their routine, their warm-up and everything planned enough time to get there, had all been thrown out of the thing. So I think you've kind of got to be prepared that things can go wrong, and that you've just got to be prepared that you're going to make it work. So I think that would have thrown me off a lot. But I guess for a 50, it's not as much. But when I'm doing like big warm-ups and things, that would have really thrown me off.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. In terms of me, superstitions wise, I'd have lucky socks. I'd have one Superman, one Batman from Primark. Loved them. Got like 50 pairs in the end, just so that I wasn't wearing the same, because that's a bit rank. And also, and I don't think anyone really knows this other than family, but for backstroke racing, as soon as the whistle goes to get in, if I wasn't the first one in the water, I'd have less chance of winning the race. So I always tried to enter the water first, and no one knew that. Yeah, and some people were quick getting in that water, I tell you. So I'd be like, as soon as that whistle went, I'd be straight in. I had to try and get in, and so yeah, I had weird little things like that. Really, I didn't have any particular stretches or anything like that. But yeah, I had to be first in the water, which you look at and you think, what an idiot. But for me,
but I've seen people that are like that fight to be last in the water, and there'll be like 2 people standing on the end, and where everyone's just waiting for them to get in, but none of them, they both want to be last in the water.
Yeah.
And I'm like, someone's got a cave, and it's not going to affect your race whether you get in last or not.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy. But so when you get on the blocks, before take your marks, you're already down, or you stood up like Ben Proud and then go down?
I'm already down.
Already down. I am. I'd fall in if I did Ben Proud.
Yeah.
I don't know how he stands up and then goes down. I always think I'd just lose balance and fall in.
Yeah. I wasn't the most powerful off the blocks, so it didn't make that much difference to me, to be honest, to be in already.
Straight in, don't even stand up at all, just crawl onto the blocks. What number did you have the ledge on?
I think it was 2 or 3.
Okay.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
Mix it up sometimes. Didn't stick to the same
Treat
one.
yourself, put on one.
What about you?
5.
I tell you what, those backstroke wedges, they would have thrown me off because I've seen them go wrong too many times.
Yeah, they're not so stable. And before the ledges came out, I really practiced my start like so much that I didn't need a ledge to clear the water, but then they brought the ledges in and then it became easier for everyone to clear the water. But yeah, I've seen again Liam Tancock's just crumble, and he didn't go forwards, he just went up and down. I think that was at Mare Nostrum. So yeah, it gives you anxiety, stuff like that, doesn't it? All the new equipment and stuff like that. Have you ever had a suit rip?
Yeah, right before a final, actually, at World Champs.
Oh, really?
walked past the fridge, like it was like a low down fridge, and it just ripped all across my bum. And so then the physio and all these people are holding like towels around me, so I just had to strip and then get the suit straight back on. And I was just like full of like adrenaline. I didn't actually swim that bad, but I came fourth, so wasn't the best. Wasn't the best memories. What about you?
No, I didn't have a suit rip before. It was after the race. I pulled the strap down. For anyone that maybe isn't into swimming, swim racing suits are so tight, and so normally girls get a friend to pull it out, pull the shoulders down just to help. And so we're pulling the shoulder down, and it ripped right down the front. So boobs are out. Like, it was like, oh, hello. But luckily it was after the race, so it was chill. It was a bit of a laugh, and there wasn't much to it. But yeah, suit rips, equipment failures, they're bound to happen at some point, and it's just about trying to stay calm, really, isn't it, rather than just get frantic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's you just got to be prepared and control the things you can control, and if things go wrong, you just got to try and deal with it with a cool head as much as you can, even though there's all panic. And some people do actually swim better when things do go wrong as well. So it kind of throws them off a little bit.
It makes them focus on something else other than what they're up to. Have you ever done, because obviously freestyle, technically you can do any stroke for freestyle. So have you ever done a freestyle event, a different stroke? Obviously you're a freestyler, so you're probably less likely to, but did you ever do that in a race or not?
No, I never did. From the age of 16, I never did any other stroke.
Oh yeah, so fair enough. Oh, well, I did a 400 back short course at Stockport, and then an 800 back long course. I don't know why. I don't even know what times I went. I think the 400 I went 4. I did do quite well. Short course, I did 420 something for 400 back. So I was like, I'll take that. That's good. Can't remember the 800. I just remember thinking, what am I doing halfway through the race, to be honest?
That's a long one. Some of my fondest memories are actually from my old swimming club at Tiger Sharks, and we used to just have like local Southern Junior leagues and summer league, winter league, and that would be all like relays and like fun, and like I'd be racing my friends. So they're actually some of the best competitions that I've done.
Definitely.
And we used to just love it. We used to love it. And
back-to-back racing and all
so they're probably some of my favorite memories.
Yeah.
Back-to-back racing and going on the bus to wherever we were racing, and we'd all like be singing and all sorts. So it's like, you do look back and they're some of my favorite memories. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. No, just from what you've just said, when you're junior, those are, some of the best memories for me, and the relays with the girls and stuff like that. And I remember being at my first club, Saracens, and I got put on the breaststroke for the medley relay. And because I was the only one that could really do all right, I think, in it. And I refused to do it. I just refused. I was like, I'm not doing breaststroke. I'm not doing breaststroke. Right up until I was stood on the blocks and the coach was stood next to me, and he was like, you can do it. You can do breaststroke. And so I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm stood on the blocks and going, I'm not doing breaststroke. And I did do it. Of course I did. I'm not, I don't know who I thought I was, like this big tough, I'm not doing it. But of course I did it. I don't know how I did, but it's just those moments where you look back on and you do have a laugh. And just like we've just said, the back-to-back racing. I loved back-to-back racing. I loved regionals and counties and stuff like that, where you'd be in, race out, in, race out. And I used to race really well doing that. Now I'd probably die a slow, painful death with the lactate. But yeah, like just great memories all the way through. And talking about lactate, what was the highest yours ever got to? Because I'm interested, you being a distance athlete.
I don't know. In training, it got up to 14.
Oh, nice. That's good. That's high, no?
Yeah, for a distance swimmer, I think. Yeah, I could produce a bit of lactate. What about you?
Yeah, go on, Jazz. I thought you'd be like, it's about 6, Olympic final, about 6. No, mine got up to 21 at the Commonwealth Games holding camp. And it was only 6, I think it was 650s freestyle off descending rest. And the last one, I think I just fell in, basically. I just had so much lactate. And Mikey P, good old Mikey P, took my lactate at the end. And it was 21 and I was just in so much pain.
Well, we've loved sharing our stories and moments throughout our sporting careers through competitions and stuff. Again, thank you so much for listening. We have really enjoying it and we hope that you can get something from it. And there's plenty more that we can share and really go through that journey with you. So keep listening and don't forget there'll be new episodes out every Wednesday. So stay tuned.